Don't you like to be in the know? To have an insider's knowledge of how things really work? To feel as though you know things the average person simply doesn't know? If you can say yes to any of these questions, you know exactly what Paul was up against in writing the letter to the Colossians. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas. It's true. We all want to feel special, to feel as though we have an edge over everyone else. It doesn't really matter what area of life. We like the feeling of being somehow distinctive, set apart. But it can be an especially potent feeling when it comes to matters of religion, because, well, the stakes seem higher. What if someone else has an inside track on salvation and we're left out in the cold? In fact, that's the draw of the fiction series Left Behind. We're afraid that if we get things wrong, we could be left behind if everyone else is suddenly taken up to heaven. Spoiler alert, the idea that some will be taken up and some left behind in a so-called rapture is not part of our Reformed system of belief. I'll talk more about that another time, though. As I noted yesterday, the city of Colossae was a pretty cosmopolitan place, one where different religious ideas and philosophies floated around freely. And while we don't have a full picture of these beliefs, we can read between the lines in Paul's letters, and especially in this letter to the Colossians, to get a pretty good feel for these beliefs. Here's what Paul says to encourage Christian believers to hold fast to the faith that they had received. Now, see if you can put together the kinds of religious ideas Paul warns against. Therefore, do not let anyone condemn you in matters of food and drink, or of observing festivals, new moons, or Sabbaths. These are only a shadow of what is to come, but the substance belongs to Christ. Do not let anyone disqualify you, insisting on self-abasement and worship of angels, dwelling on visions, puffed up without cause by a human way of thinking, and not holding fast to the head, from whom the whole body, nourished and held together by its ligaments and sinews, grows with a growth that is from God. If with Christ you died to the elemental spirits of the universe, why do you live as if you still belonged to the world? Why do you submit to regulations? Do not handle, do not taste, do not touch. All these regulations refer to things that perish with use. They are simply human commands and teachings. These have indeed an appearance of wisdom in promoting self-imposed piety, humility, and severe treatment of the body, but they are of no value in checking self-indulgence. Did you pick up on the religious ideas of the day? If not, here's a thumbnail sketch. Many people believed that the world as we know it, the world of material things, is not the world of the really real. The real world is not material at all, they believed, but only spiritual. This world, the one we live in, is just a shadow of the real world, a sort of cheap dime store imitation of the world of ultimate reality. But as people composed of flesh and blood, we don't have access to the real world except through two essential paths, they believed. First, through appeals to a pantheon of intermediary beings who exist somewhere between the material realm and the spiritual realm. Second, they believed that by heroic acts of self-denial, whether the denial of food through severe fasting, or by refraining from sex, or by refraining from strong drink, people believed that by this kind of stringent self-denial, the mind could be set free from the needs of the flesh in order to have more direct communion with God. The inevitable result of these sorts of practices was a kind of spiritual pride that people had, which Paul describes as being puffed up. In many respects, These ideas are still floating around our world today. We still need to hear Paul's warning to maintain the faith as we have received it. Because in truth, Christian faith just isn't that hard. It doesn't require special knowledge or insight. It doesn't require secret or esoteric spiritual practices. It doesn't require heroic self-denial to prove our worthiness. It requires only a belief that we ourselves are powerless to save ourselves, but God in Christ has done the heavy lifting for us to make us worthy through His own efforts on our behalf. Still, in some ways it feels too easy. Maybe that's why we keep trying to make it harder than it has to be. We think we have to work hard, but the truth is, there are no super Christians. There are just people like you and me who just need to be reminded now and again that in Jesus Christ we have been reconciled to God. Tomorrow, we'll see how Paul seems to encourage some of the same sort of self-denial that he condemns among the Colossians, but how the things he encourages are not for the purpose of puffing up, but for helping people claim their essential equality in Jesus Christ. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.